Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Michael Gormley from CobbleStone Software, and today we are going to be walking through breakout session number 3, which is going to be a demo of CobbleStone's purchase orders, punchouts, and shopping carts functionality within our Contract Insight Enterprise solution. So on today's session, we will be walking through quite a few different areas within the system. First, we're going to be walking through how to create and cut purchase orders within the system that can really initiate from one of 3 ways. First, I'm going to walk through initiating a requisition within the system, and once approved, we're going to create a purchase order off of that request. Then I'll walk through how we can cut purchase orders from contract records that have already been executed within the system. And then finally, we'll be initiating new purchase orders within the system through our shopping cart experience, which will both offer an internal shopping cart as well as an external punch-out shopping cart experience as well. So first, what we're going to do is initiate a purchase order from an approved requisition within the system. So what we will do now is come down to our requests main menu item, and we're going to hit add request record. Now, I'm sure the requisition module is very familiar to most of the individuals on today's call. It is an out-of-the-box module that comes with your standard enterprise solution. So I won't go into too much detail about the requisitions within our system, but I'll just come in here and select the request type that I would like to do. So we're going to be submitting a new purchase request. And then we're going to fill out some of the fields that we have here. So we'll say this is a request for contract management software. The requester is going to default to the user who is adding it in. In this case, I am logged in as Michael Jones. So that is who the requester defaults to. And then we're going to choose the department/business unit if this request is assigned to, and I'm associated with the procurement department. We'll fill out the rest of these fields. We can add some additional details if we would like as well. So we'll say the procurement team is looking to purchase a full Lifecycle CLM tool. Now we have our request amount here. Just for the initial session right now, I'm going to leave the request amount set to 0 to start, but we'll go in and update that in just a little bit. Now, once the user fills out all of the relevant fields, we'll save and continue, and it takes us to our request details page where we can see some of that key metadata information we just filled out has been populated. And if we do scroll down here to our task, emails, workflows, and alerts table, if your team is not familiar with the requisitions module, your team can create an unlimited amount of workflows to automate the internal approval associated with any new requests that come in your system as well. So as you can see, I have a request automatically kick off to Bob Smith, making him aware that a new requisition came in and he needs to complete a legal review. But if we also come back up here, and just for the sake of example, let's say, you know what, we're going to update this request amount to $50,000. We can see upon my request amount field being updated, if I scroll back down to that task, emails, workflows, and alerts table, we see an additional workflow is now kicked off to Paul Johnson to complete a CFO review, because I have my workflow set up where if the request amount is over $50,000, it automatically needs to go to the CFO for his review and potential approval. Now, like I said, I won't go into too much detail through the request page. If anybody's new to the request side of the system, it's very similar to your contract details page. As we saw, you can create an unlimited amount of workflows. You can upload an unlimited amount of relevant files or attachments. So maybe if the user or requester has to upload quotes that they received from the vendors or questionnaires that need to be completed ahead of time, they can upload any relevant documentation here. But again, just for the sake of time, if we come up in here and say, you know what, the request has gone through its approvals, a permissioned user can come in here and update the request status to either be accepted, rejected, or canceled. Now, before I do that, it does default to the request status being pending. And when the status is set to pending, if we look on the left-hand side to our Create from Request tab, we only have one option right now. All I can do is create a new request from this current record. However, once a permissioned user comes in here and accepts this request, and they update that status, we can see that Create from Request tab now provides us with quite a few additional options that are now available. We still have the ability to create a new request from this record, We can create a brand new contract record from this request. But on today's session, what we're going to focus on is now creating a new purchase order directly from this requisition as well. So again, a permissioned user can create new purchase order, and we can see it takes us to the PO add screen, but we can see some of the information and details that was filled out on the request screen is automatically mapped over, just to save your user some time from needing to type in any redundant information if it was already provided. So we can see the notes, the buyer assigned to, and then the department were all automatically mapped over based upon the data that was associated with the request. So we'll come in here and fill out the rest of these fields. Now, again, everyone is probably familiar with this from the contract side of things, but all of these fields and data points that we're tracking on our PO add screen will be completely configurable to organization. So we'll select the vendor that's going to be associated with this PO, the PO date assigned, and then some of the other additional information associated with this purchase order. So as we scroll down, I'll just fill out these fields. And we'll keep moving along. Now, as we get to the bottom here, before I save and continue, I do want to point out this request ID field right here. This request ID field, as you can see, is automatically populated to basically link together this purchase order from the associated requisition that came as a result of this. So at any time as your procurement team or accounting team, if they're going through CobbleStone and auditing all of the purchase orders, at any time they can have a quick reference and see, okay, where did this purchase order come as a result from? As we can see, it was initiated from the request ID of 3, and then we can go into the system and find that request to see if there's any auditing that needs to be completed. But once we save and continue, it will now take the user to our purchase order details page. And we can see the very first thing that the user will see is this big blue square here with some key information to track the budget spend tracking for Michael Jones, who is the employee that ordered this, as well as the spend limit tracking, again, for Michael Jones, who is also the buyer that was assigned to this. A feature that comes with the purchase order add-on module within Contract Insight is the employee budget spend tracking. Internally, within your internal employee list, each employee within your system can get assigned a budget for that fiscal year. So in that case, my fiscal year is from January to January. And what this will allow the system to do is confirm any new purchase orders that are built and added within the system. It's going to look and see at both the employee ordered for as well as the buyer assigned to make sure they have the fiscal year budget approved for this purchase order to be completed. So in this case, my fiscal year budget, I have enough money to cover this new purchase order that was created. So it's a big blue square. But at any time, if a new purchase order is added, that will push either the employee ordered for or the buyer assigned to over their fiscal year budget for that year. This big blue box will no longer be blue. It will be a big red box, basically stopping this purchase order from continuing along until either that information has been updated on the PO side. Maybe it needs to be transferred to another employee ordered for or assigned to that has the budget for that fiscal year. Or we can go into that employee profile, again, as a permissioned user, and update the employee's fiscal budget amount to cover the new PO that has been added. So again, that spend tracking is just going to be very easy, quick reference, just to ensure none of your employees are ordering or being assigned to purchase orders that will surpass their approved fiscal budget for that coming year. So we'll come down here on our PO details page, and a lot of the information that you're seeing here looks very similar to the contract details page. So we have information to track any relevant files or attachments for this purchase order, any automated workflows that need to be triggered. And then we also have our PO line items table, where we can come in and add the individual line items that are going to be assigned to this PO. Now, before I go through the PO line items table, I'm going to digress just a bit. I want to discuss on a side feature that comes with the purchase order management module, and that's going to be the items list and catalog manager within your system as well. Within the application, your team will have the ability to store an unlimited amount of items within your items list. This will allow you to track and manage any relevant items that your users can purchase, as well as the associated vendor and unit cost and all of that key information for each one of those items. But then what we can do is a step beyond that. Once you have all of your items added within your system, you can create an unlimited amount of catalogs to permission off what users should and should not have access to each item within your system. So as you can see here, I have two catalogs. First, I have basic office supplies, and this includes very standard office items, new pens, pencils, staplers, printer paper, things like that. And really, every user within my procurement department has the ability to add POs or create requests for items within that certain catalog. I have no problem if John Smith from the procurement team wants to request for some new pens or pencils. But as you can see, I also have a second catalog, which is called our C-Suite catalog. And this is limited to very high ticket items. This contains information like computers, printers, new laptops, computer monitors, things like that. Really more of those high-end ticket items that's going to be restricted to only my C-suite executives within my system. So only individuals who are provided permissions to view and add items from this catalog will have the ability to create purchase orders off of those. So that will restrict our standard end users. I don't want anybody from the procurement department to submit a request for a new computer because they don't like the laptop that they were given. It just restricts the permissions to what items each user can have access to. So there's no irrelevant requisitions or purchase orders coming in for users that shouldn't be requesting those high ticket items. So if we jump back to the purchase order details page, when we scroll down to that PO line items table, the users, when adding in new line items, will be restricted to only seeing items that they have permission to access within those catalogs. So again, if a user comes in and they don't have access to add a line item for a computer, they won't be able to add those line items to this purchase order. But when we go to add in a line item, we can see here are the 4 items that I have permission to buy. So we have pens, pencils, printer paper, and contract management software. This is going to be for that CMS solution. So we'll hit the add button right here, and we're prompted to select our quantity, and I'll add that item. Now, as you can see, I can continue to add additional line items to this PO as needed. Once I have all of my line items selected, we can now view my cart. And here's all of the items that we currently have. And it will give us a cart total based off of all of the items here. So as we can see, I have a quantity of 1 for contract management software. That's a total of $12,000. We can come in and now add this to our PO. And we can see that line item for contract management software does now appear under our purchase order line items table. At any time, we can come in and add additional PO line items until our order has been placed. And as you can see, you don't have to add these manually. You can also bulk import these line items using a structured CSV file. And at any time, we can export these line items out as well. But once we have all of our line items added, I now want to come up to our merge document templates table. And within the system, very similar to your contracts, your team can store an unlimited amount of templates for your purchase orders as well. So I'll come in here and choose my purchase order template. And very similar to the contracts, the system will author this PO document in a native Microsoft Word format. So we'll open that up here. And we can see all of that information that we've been filling out on both the add screen as well as that line items table has automatically been pulled into our document. So we can see the relevant vendor information, the vendor it's with, that PO number, and then that line item for CMS software. So we can close this out. I now simply want to attach this PO document to my files and attachments table. And now when we return to our record details page, we can see that authored document is now stored underneath our files and attachments table. Once we have our PO created, your team can either download this document locally and manually email it to the vendor, making them aware of this new PO, or we can come over here to our action sidebar and we can send emails directly from the system as well. So you can send that PO document directly to the vendor right from the contract insight system. Then once we send that PO out and the order has been placed, we have this order place field that defaults to no. We can come in and flip that to yes. And now that we've told the system that the order has been placed, if we scroll back down to that PO line items table, we can see we can no longer add in additional line items because this order has already been placed. We're now just prompted with the ability to let the system know that we have either received this line item in full, we've had partial received. So this will be used for, let's say we ordered 10 computers from ABC company. Maybe on the initial order, they shipped all 10, but during delivery, one of the computers cracked and broke. We can basically tell the system, hey, we only received 9 out of the 10 or 8 out of the 10 or whatever that may be. As you update these line items being received under the PO line items table, if we scroll up to the top as well, we do have a subtable that show you what purchase orders have been received as well. So this will allow your procurement team and anybody who's handling the purchase orders to always be aware of what has been ordered, what has been received, just to make sure you're getting all of the items that you ordered and paid for. So that's going to be walking through the purchase order details from a request within the system. Now, your team will also have the ability to come in here if you have the proper permissions and just create a PO record from scratch if you would like. But you can also cut POs from a contract details page as well. So if we go to one of my contract records that has a PO attached to it, we'll view that here. This contract details page will be very similar to what most of you are familiar with working with. Once a contract has been executed, under the action sidebar, if you do have this purchase order add-on module, you will now have the ability to create a brand new purchase order directly from this contract record. And then as POs are cut against this record, on the contract details page, if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we're going to have this purchase orders table that will give you a quick link to show you what PO records are actually linked to this record. And then we have our PO management summary table down below that will give you a summary of the purchase orders associated with this contract. So it shows you the combined total PO amount. It will look at this contract's budget amount, and then it will give you both the budget percentage that your team has used, as well as the budget percent remaining that you have left to use. And then it will give you that monetary value of how much of your budget is actually remaining as well. So here you can see out of our 100K budget, we have 68,000 remaining. And with that purchase order module, your team can cut an unlimited amount of purchase orders from really any contract record within the system. So that was creating a purchase order off of a requisition or creating a purchase order off of a contract record. Like I mentioned, the third option that we have with our PO module is more of a shopping cart experience. So if we come in here to our procurement main menu item and come to purchases, as you can see, we have first this shopping cart tab, and we also have this Punchouts option as well. First, we'll go through the internal shopping cart experience. If we choose shopping cart here, this will give us a drop-down list to select from any of the approved vendors within your system. So again, keep in mind when the user clicks this drop-down, they're only going to see approved vendors within your application. And then once we choose the vendor that we want to select items from, we will be given a list of, again, approved items from this vendor that this user has permission to buy from. So again, in this case, I have the ability to purchase items, pens, pencils, printer paper, and contract management software. But if we had another user log in who could only see pens, pencils, and printer paper, when they went to that shopping cart and chose this same company, they would only be seeing the 3 items that they have permission to access within the application. So this shopping cart experience is very similar to when we were adding those line items to the purchase order we already created. We can select the items that we want to add. So I want to add 10 packs of pens here. We'll also add 10 packs of pencils. And we also need some printer paper as well. So we'll come in here and add those. I only need 5. Again, as we have all of our items added, if we come to our cart, And we'll see all of those items that we just added. And we can come in here and edit these, say, hey, I did say a quantity of 10, but I actually want a quantity of 15 now. We can update that information accordingly. And then again, we can also, as you can see, delete items if maybe there's a scenario where we added a printer paper by accident, but you know what, we don't need that anymore. We can delete that from our purchase order. But once we have our internal shopping cart built, we can either come in here and create a brand new purchase order from this cart, or if there's already a purchase order within our system that doesn't have the items placed set to yes, so if the order hasn't been placed yet, we can come in and add these additional line items to a current purchase order that's already created within the application as well. But once we come in here and do create PO, it would then essentially just walk through that normal process that we just walked already, filling out all of the relevant information, and then those line items would automatically be added under that PO line items table on this purchase order record. But the other shopping cart experience that we do offer is going to be for punchouts. And these punchouts are going to take the internal shopping cart experience within CobbleStone and push it out to a third-party website for your team and users to do the shopping within their external website. And then it's going to take all of those items within the external shopping cart and pull it right back within the CobbleStone. So the three standard punchouts that we offer currently are Amazon, CDW, and Grainger. Now, if your team is interested in this functionality and there's another third-party provider that you would be interested in punching out to, please reach out to your CobbleStone assigned account rep, and they would be able to work with you to get that additional third-party included. But for today's call, we'll walk through Amazon. And once we choose this Amazon option here, we can see that it will push us out to the external Amazon website for your standard online shopping experience. I'm sure everyone on today's call is very familiar with shopping on Amazon, maybe some of us more familiar than we really should be. But as you can see, it's going to be your standard Amazon online shopping experience. So we can come in here and look through these items and select what we want to buy. Let's say, you know what, we need more kitchen wipes with COVID going on. We know these are going fast, so we'll choose these options right here. And then again, as you can see, similar to your standard shopping experience, we can select the quantity and add those items to our cart. Now, we can continue shopping as needed, but once we have our cart ready with all of the items that we want to submit for review, we can now click Submit these items for approval. And this will take us directly from the Amazon website, directly back right within the Contract Insight system. And once it takes us to our purchase order details page, we can see all of the key information associated from that shopping cart that we pulled in. And then as we scroll down here, if we get to our purchase line items table, we can see that those line items that we did add on the Amazon shopping cart does appear directly in our PO line items table with all of that relevant information. And then again, if there's additional items that we need to add, we can go back out to that third-party website to add those additional line items. And then once we have all of the items added, we can now submit this punch out for order for our internal approvals associated with this, again, whether it's a legal review or a finance review or anything like that. So that is all of the features and functionality that I wanted to walk through on breakout session 3, the demo of purchase order, punch outs, and shopping carts. This recording will be ended very soon, and then once this recording ends, we'll jump into that live Q&A session where anyone can ask any questions or clarifications they may need based off of any of the functionality that we walk through, whether it was requisitions, POs from request, cutting a PO from a contract, or that internal shopping cart or punch-out shopping cart experience. Thank you all for your time and interest in reviewing today's breakout session, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you all in just a couple minutes to go through any questions you may have. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining.